There was a time when Allis Chalmers stood tall among the giants of American tractor history: bold orange paint, raw power, and brilliant innovation. Yet behind that success were machines that should have changed farming forever, but didn't. Some were too advanced, some too expensive, and others simply arrived at the wrong time. Today we're looking back at 10 Allis Chalmers tractors that were great but failed. Forgotten by the market, but never forgotten by those who know true engineering genius. Number 1. Allis Chalmers Model U, 1929 to 1952. The year was 1929. America was on the edge of the Great Depression, and farms were still ruled by horses and steel wheels. Tractors were heavy, slow, and rough, more punishment than progress for the average farmer. Then came something extraordinary: the Allis Chalmers Model U. When it rolled out of the factory in West Allis, Wisconsin, it was nothing short of revolutionary. Its 4-cylinder, 262 cubic inch engine produced a jaw-dropping 22 horsepower at the drawbar, a figure that put it in league with larger, more expensive machines. But its power wasn't the only thing that made it special. The Model U was the first tractor in history to be fitted with pneumatic rubber tires, thanks to a partnership between Allis Chalmers and Firestone. It was a radical idea. Farmers had always relied on steel wheels with iron lugs for traction, the kind that tore deep into soil but shook a man's bones to dust after hours of driving. Rubber tires promised smoother rides, less soil damage, and faster road speeds, nearly 10 miles per hour, an unheard of pace for the time. But farmers didn't trust it. "Rubber tires can't pull," they said. Dealers had to give demonstrations just to convince skeptical buyers that a rubber-tired tractor wouldn't slip and sink. In one famous story, an Allis Chalmers salesman tied his Model U to a rival's steel-wheeled tractor and proved to a stunned crowd that the rubber-tired U could outpull it with ease. Despite its brilliance, the Model U never sold in the numbers it deserved. The Depression crushed farm incomes, and most farmers couldn't afford new technology. By the time the economy recovered, competitors had adopted the same ideas. Yet the Model U had already made history. Its innovation paved the way for modern traction, changing farming forever. It failed in its time, yes, but not in spirit. Because every tractor that's ever driven down a road on rubber tires owes a debt to the Allis Chalmers Model U, the machine that was too advanced for 1929, but just right for the future. Number 2. Allis Chalmers Model WC, 1933 to 1948. When the Allis Chalmers Model WC hit the market in 1933, America's farms were starving. The Great Depression had drained money, and many farmers were still using horses because they simply couldn't afford mechanization. Allis Chalmers saw an opportunity, and the WC was their answer. It was the first tractor ever mass-produced on an assembly line, just like Ford's automobiles. This allowed Allis to cut costs dramatically, offering the WC for under $1,000, a price that put mechanical power within reach of struggling farmers. But affordability wasn't the only magic. The WC was a perfect balance of strength and simplicity. Its 220 cubic inch 4-cylinder engine produced around 22 horsepower at the drawbar, more than enough for small and mid-sized farms. It was built light, efficient, and could run on multiple fuels: gasoline, kerosene, or low-cost distillate. It also featured adjustable wheel tracks, making it adaptable for row crop farming, a feature that John Deere and International Harvester would later adopt. The WC became an instant hit. It sold over 178,000 units, pulling Allis Chalmers out of financial ruin and into the spotlight. For many farmers, it was the first tractor they ever owned, a dependable partner that could plow, plant, and harvest without complaint. But success can be a trap. When World War II ended and farming boomed again, the market evolved faster than Allis Chalmers did. The WC's basic design stayed mostly unchanged for years, while rivals like John Deere introduced hydraulic systems, power steering, and greater comfort. Allis Chalmers stuck to what worked, and suddenly, what worked wasn't enough. By the 1950s, the WC's descendants were struggling to keep up. What had once been revolutionary was now obsolete. The Model WC didn't fail as a tractor. It failed because it froze in time. It built the Allis Chalmers empire, but also lulled it into a dangerous comfort zone. Still, the WC remains a legend, the machine that carried America's farmers through the hardest years, proving that sometimes greatness isn't about perfection, but endurance. Number 3. Allis Chalmers D19. In the early 1960s, farming was changing fast. Bigger fields, heavier equipment, more horsepower needed than ever before. But while most companies chased size, Allis Chalmers chased innovation, and the result was the D19, the first American farm tractor with a factory-installed turbocharged diesel engine. Its 262 cubic inch turbo diesel pumped out around 85 horsepower, an incredible figure for the time. The turbocharger wasn't just about speed, it gave the D19 remarkable pulling power and fuel efficiency. Where other tractors strained, the D19 hummed effortlessly. The engineering was visionary. The turbo system forced extra air into the engine, burning fuel more completely and delivering more torque. It was the future of diesel design, years ahead of its competitors. But timing is everything. Farmers in the early 1960s didn't understand turbochargers. They were used to naturally aspirated diesels, simple, durable, and forgiving. The D19's turbo made it powerful but also more sensitive. Overheating and oil seal failures plagued early units when pushed too hard or improperly maintained. Mechanics, unfamiliar with the new system, often made problems worse. Rumors spread quickly. "Those turbos don't last," farmers said. And in rural America, word of mouth could kill a machine faster than a bad review. Sales dropped, and Allis Chalmers pulled the D19 from production in Ironically, within a decade, nearly every tractor manufacturer from John Deere to Case IH would adopt turbocharging as standard. Allis Chalmers had seen the future but arrived too early to be rewarded for it. Despite its rocky reputation, farmers who understood it swore by the D9. It was smooth, powerful, and decades ahead in design. Today, collectors look back at it with respect. The orange pioneer that proved innovation doesn't always win in the moment, but it defines the generations that follow. The D19 didn't fail because it was weak. It failed because the world wasn't ready for that kind of power. Number 4. Allis Chalmers Model CA 1950 to 1958. When the Allis Chalmers Model CA arrived in 1950, it seemed destined for success. It was the perfect answer to the needs of post-war small farmers, compact, reliable, and efficient. At 26 horsepower, it packed just enough muscle to handle plowing, cultivating, and mowing, while remaining light on fuel and easy to maintain. The CA inherited the legacy of the Model B and C, two of Allis's most beloved small tractors, but took things a step further. It introduced live hydraulics, allowing the operator to control implements with precision even while the clutch was depressed. That made it far more versatile than earlier models. And then came its secret weapon, the Allis Chalmers snap coupler system. The snap coupler was an ingenious quick-hitch design that let farmers attach or detach implements in seconds, often without leaving the seat. It was safer, faster, and simpler than traditional hitch systems. For the working farmer, this was nothing short of revolutionary. But as smart as it was, it carried a fatal flaw. It wasn't standard. While Allis Chalmers bet on its proprietary snap coupler, competitors like Ford and Ferguson were pushing the three-point hitch, which was soon adopted industry-wide as the universal standard. The result? Allis Chalmers isolated itself. Farmers couldn't use implements interchangeably with other brands, and dealers struggled to sell snap coupler equipment in mixed-brand regions. At the same time, agriculture itself was changing. Small farms were vanishing as large-scale operations took over. The CA, perfect for 40 or 80-acre farms, was suddenly too small for the new world of agribusiness. Sales dwindled, and by 1958, the CA was discontinued. It didn't fail because it was poorly designed, it failed because the world around it changed. The CA remains one of the best engineered small tractors ever built, loved by collectors and restorers even today. It was proof that great ideas sometimes lose, not because they're wrong, but because they arrived just before the rest of the world is ready to understand them. Number 5. Allis Chalmers, 190XT, 1964 to 1971. In 1964, Allis Chalmers unveiled a beast, the 190XT, a machine that looked like it had stepped straight out of the future. Big, bold, and unapologetically orange, it represented raw mechanical confidence. With a turbocharged 301 cubic inch diesel engine producing up to 93 horsepower, the 190XT could plow fields, pull heavy implements, and dominate any work thrown its way. It was designed to go head-to-head with the John Deere 4020, the tractor that defined the 90s, and at first glance, it had everything going for it. More horsepower per dollar, lighter weight, and a modern design that farmers loved to look at. But beneath its impressive frame lay a fatal flaw. It was too powerful for its own drivetrain. The engineers at Allis Chalmers had taken the solid transmission and rear end from the older D19 model and paired it with the new turbocharged engine. What they didn't fully anticipate was how much more torque the turbo would generate. Farmers, thrilled by the machine's strength, began pulling heavier loads and running the tractor harder than it was designed for. Soon, reports of broken final drives and clutch failures began surfacing. What had been marketed as a super tractor now had a reputation for mechanical fragility. And in farming communities, word spreads faster than wildfire. The 190XT's image was damaged, and no amount of marketing could fully recover it, even after Allis reinforced components in later versions. It's tragic, because when it worked, it was magnificent. Smooth power, strong hydraulics, and that unmistakable turbo whistle that echoed across the fields. Many owners who respected its limits still swear by it today. But in the brutal world of farming, a tractor's reputation can make or break it, and the 190XT's early failures branded it as unreliable. Legacy. The 190XT was a marvel of engineering muscle, but it taught Allis Chalmers a painful truth. Raw power means nothing if the rest of the machine can't handle it. Number 6. Allis Chalmers, D21, 1963 to 19. When the D21 first appeared in 1963, it was impossible to ignore. Towering over every other tractor on the lot, it was the biggest, boldest, and most powerful Allis Chalmers had ever built. This was the first Allis to break the 100 horsepower barrier, boasting a 7.0-liter turbocharged diesel engine that delivered up to 128 horsepower, a monstrous figure for its time. It wasn't just a tractor, it was a statement. Everything about the D21 screamed ambition. The wide stance, the long sculpted hood, the futuristic styling that looked like it belonged in a 1960s sci-fi film. It was the kind of machine that could turn heads even at a distance. But while the D21 looked ready to conquer the world was already changing, and not in Allis Chalmers' favor. By the early 1960s, the market for high-horsepower tractors was dominated by John Deere's 50110 and International Harvester's 1206. Both had loyal followings and well-established dealer networks. Allis Chalmers, though innovative, lacked the widespread service support needed for such a large and demanding machine. And then there was traction, or rather, the lack of it. Early D21s were light in the rear, and under heavy drawbar loads they lost grip. Farmers quickly discovered that all that horsepower meant nothing if the tires couldn't hold the ground. Later Series 2 versions added weight and improved stability, but by then much of the market had moved on. The D21 never recovered from its early missteps. Still, for those who owned one, the D21 was unforgettable. It was smooth, powerful, and unlike anything else in the field. Its turbo roar was legendary, a deep, steady growl that could be heard across miles of farmland. It failed commercially, yes, but not because it was bad. It failed because it was too far ahead of the company behind it. Legacy. The D21 was the right tractor at the wrong time, a machine that showed Allis Chalmers could build giants even if it couldn't sell them. Number 7. Allis Chalmers 220, 19. The Allis Chalmers 220 was more than just a tractor. It was meant to be a crown jewel. Released in 1970, it was designed as the company's flagship, an all-out powerhouse that could stand toe-to-toe with the biggest machines in the field. With a 426 cubic inch turbocharged diesel engine, the 220 pumped out around 150 horsepower, making it one of the strongest row crop tractors of its day. It featured the reliable power director transmission and heavy-duty rear axles capable of handling serious fieldwork. It was fast, too, capable of over 20 miles per hour on the road, which earned it praise from farmers who needed to travel between distant plots. But while the tractor's performance was top-notch, its sales never matched its potential. Why? Because Allis Chalmers had misread the market. The 220 was priced high, close to the cost of a small house in 1970, and aimed at large commercial farms, but those farms were already loyal to other brands. Meanwhile, smaller farmers who loved Allis Chalmers' mid-range models couldn't justify the expense of such a massive machine. And unlike some competitors, the 220 didn't come with a factory-installed cab during its early production years. In an era when air-conditioned, soundproofed operator comfort was becoming a selling point, Allis Chalmers lagged behind. Even though it was incredibly capable, durable, fast, and powerful, it was also isolated. The company simply didn't have the dealer strength or marketing power to make the 220 a household name. Production quietly ended in 1973 after just a few thousand units. Yet among enthusiasts today, the 220 is celebrated as one of the finest Allis Chalmers tractors ever built, a brute wrapped in engineering elegance. Legacy? The 220 wasn't a failure of design, it was a failure of economics. A brilliant machine built for a market that didn't exist. Number 8. Allis Chalmers 7000 Series, 1973 to 1979. By the early 1970s, farmers were demanding modern tractors with enclosed cabs, quiet engines, and advanced hydraulics. Allis Chalmers responded with the 7000 series, including the 7020, 7040, and 7060. These tractors looked sharp, sleek new styling, bold orange paint, and for the first time, full factory cabs with heating and air conditioning. Underneath the hood, they carried proven power plants like the 426 cubic inch diesel, producing between 120 and 150 horsepower. They should have been a massive success. But behind the shine lay cracks. The power director and power shift transmissions, though advanced on paper, proved unreliable in the field. Farmers reported issues with clutch packs and shifting systems, particularly under heavy loads. Some called them good tractors with bad guts. And it wasn't just mechanics, it was timing. The early 1970s were a time of massive change in agriculture. Input costs were rising, and farmers wanted machines that could work harder and last longer. John Deere's 30 series and International's 86 series were dominating the reliability conversation, leaving the 7000s in their shadow. To make matters worse, Allis Chalmers was already struggling financially. Cost-cutting measures led to inconsistent quality control, and even good tractors got painted with the same brush of mistrust. It's a shame, because when they worked properly, the 7000s were phenomenal machines, comfortable, efficient, and capable of massive output. Today, collectors and restorers still admire them for their futuristic looks and powerful engines. But for the farmers of the 1970s, they became symbols of frustration. Legacy? The 7000 series proved that innovation alone isn't enough. Without reliability and a strong company behind it, even the best designs can fade into failure. Number 9. Allis Chalmers 8000 Series, 1979 to 1985. The 8000 series was supposed to be Allis Chalmers' redemption arc, the line that would put them back on top. Launched in 1979, these tractors were everything the modern farmer wanted. Stylish, powerful, and comfortable. The flagship 8070 packed a 426 cubic inch turbocharged diesel delivering nearly 170 horsepower, with a smooth power shift transmission that could change gears on the move. The cab was luxurious for its day, quiet, climate-controlled, and designed for long hours in the field. Visibility was excellent, the ride was smooth, and the handling was superb. It was, by all measures, one of the most advanced tractors of its generation. But history had other plans. The 1980s farm crisis hit like a hammer. Interest rates soared, land values crashed, and farmers across America went bankrupt. Sales of large tractors collapsed industry-wide, and even strong companies like International Harvester struggled. For Allis Chalmers, already burdened with debt and shrinking market share, it was a fatal blow. Even though the 8000 series performed beautifully, few farmers could afford one. Those who did often struggled to find parts or dealer support, as the company began cutting back operations. In 1985, after more than 70 years in the tractor business, Allis Chalmers sold its agricultural division to Deutz AG. The once proud orange giant was gone. It's tragic, because the 8000s were truly world-class. They could have rivaled anything from John Deere or Case IH if the company had simply survived a few more years. Legacy. The 8000 series was Allis Chalmers' final masterpiece, proof that greatness on paper can't save a company crushed by economics. Number 10. Allis Chalmers, D10 and D12, 1959 to 1968. While everyone else chased horsepower, Allis Chalmers still believed in the small farmer. The D10 and D12 were their love letters to the family farm. Compact, light, and perfectly balanced for truck gardens, orchards, and small acreage. Both tractors shared a nimble 138 cubic inch four-cylinder engine, producing 24 to 30 horsepower. Just enough to plow small fields, pull wagons, and run implements without wasting fuel. Their narrow front-end design and adjustable rear axles made them ideal for orchard and vineyard work. And like their larger cousins, they featured the snap coupler hitch, which made implement changes quick and easy. They were, in every way, practical perfection. But by the 1960s, the world of small farms was fading fast. Family plots were consolidating into large commercial operations, and demand for compact utility tractors dropped sharply. Even though the D10 and D12 were beautifully engineered, they simply didn't fit the new agricultural reality. Ford and Massey Ferguson found success selling small tractors overseas and in suburban markets, but Allis Chalmers failed to pivot. By 1968, both models were discontinued. Still, for the farmers who owned them, they were unforgettable, reliable, easy to service, and built to last. Many are still running today, used in orchards or restoration shows, proudly wearing their orange paint as a badge of honor. Legacy. The D10 and D12 were the last whispers of an era when tractors were made for families, not corporations, machines that worked as hard as the hands that drove them. Each of these tractors carried the Allis Chalmers legacy vision, courage, and innovation that often came too soon for their time. Which one do you think deserved a second chance? Tell us in the comments below. If you love stories of machines that dared to be different, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into tractor history. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep the wheels turning and the legacy alive.